Welcome to the Toronto Real Estate Podcast. Today, we are going to talk about Build Canada Homes. Yes, it's true. We're going to talk about it. Boondoggle, or the answer to Canada's housing crisis. Well, we're really going to take a deep dive into this conversation. And as we've talked about it before on this channel, oftentimes government attempts to fix affordability often tend to backfire. And in our opinion on this channel, it really isn't just about housing. It's about the bigger economic picture that we as Canadians are and have been facing for quite some time. And for a decade, Canada has been sliding in OECD rankings, failing behind in growth, productivity, and competitiveness. Housing affordability is just one symptom of a much deeper systemic problem that we're facing in Canada. And it's really, in our opinion, a bit of a shame that we keep trying to look for the government to fix all of our problems in one sweeping solution. It just isn't that simple. So we're going to take a deep dive into this today. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ralph Fox, and I am the co-founder and broker of record of Fox Marin. Today, we have my lovely and super smiley associate and partner in crime, Kori Marin, joining us. How are you today, Kor?
I'm good. I can't believe we're filming this podcast right now. We made it to this time to get this done today, but I'm looking forward to taking a deeper dive and exploring a lot of the segments of our pod today with you.
For sure. So before we take that deep dive, I just want to remind everyone who's watching this channel to be sure to hit that like or subscribe button. And if you have any comments, we would absolutely love to hear from you. Kor, do you want to take it away?
Well, I actually think this is a very interesting way to kick this off. So Mark Carney and his housing minister kicked off the Building Canada Homes initiative last week at a big press conference in Nepean, which is Mark Carney's riding. He had, the whole kit and caboodle there, all the press and a lot of construction workers there to discuss this new initiative that's going to solve all of Canada's affordability problems. And I'm going to share with you first the video that we all saw on the mainstream media. I'm going to share that video with you here. And then we're going to talk about what happened behind the scenes. So let's press play.
Build Canada Homes will catalyze the creation of an entirely new Canadian housing industry that uses modern methods of construction to boost productivity sustainably and at scale. Canadians have given our new government a mandate to build a stronger Canada with lower costs, safer communities, and homes you can afford. By building smart, building Canadian, building now, we are building Canada strong.
So that is how the scene is set up. Everybody on par, everyone knows what's going on, right? Well, later it's revealed, and I'll show you the video of this for evidence. Later it's revealed that everything you see in the backdrop of this press conference, all of this housing and this big construction team and all this work being done to build homes, well, that was all just a facade. So they actually brought in fake, parts of houses being built back here in this site in the back here. And they brought in basically theatrical props to make it look like there was actual construction being done on this site in Nepean, when in fact, it's just a vacant lot right now and absolutely nothing has been done. So our tax dollars basically paid for a production or a photo op per se to bring in everything you see in the back that actually is not there. After the press conference, all of this in the back is taken down and we see vacant land once again. So Barbara Ball, who I believe is the Conservative MP, or she was trying to run for MP in Nepean, actually brought this to light and did a video about this very thing. And this has gone viral on Instagram and Twitter since this. And I think this will be really helpful for our viewers just to set the stage for our conversation today. So I'm going to play that clip for you now.
Hey Nepean, I am at the location of Prime Minister Carney's housing announcement a few days ago, and there is nothing here. So all those buildings were brought in just for the photo op.
So that was what presented at the press conference. And the second clip is the reality of the situation. Ralph, do you have thoughts?
Oh, yeah. I mean, should I be shocked and surprised? No, not really. This whole thing is just an aberration, which has just been conjured up to make people think that this project is something other than what it actually really is. And I think this is a harbinger of what's to come, just a complete waste of taxpayers' dollars to make a big announcement where nothing has been done. And I also would like to remind people watching this that he has already been in power for 6 months, and this is all we've got with the underlying campaign message throughout his election, and possibly what got him elected was bringing affordability back to Canada. So it took 6 months, and this is where we're at 6 months into it. So where it starts to become really concerning is we're spending real Canadian dollars on this project. It's $13 billion up front with $3.5 billion to be spent annually. And so it's really leading us to really question, what exactly are Canadians buying?
I think the other part of that in terms of the campaign messaging was that they were going to do things quickly and like put shovels in the ground, and actually took one of Trump's slogans, which was build, baby, build. And he started saying the same thing, which I found ironic within itself. And then you look at 6 months later and you're like, TikTok, nothing's happening. In fact, we're just looking at a theater set at this point.
Yeah, basically a giant photo op with $13 billion to be poured into this and $3.5 billion annually. And the real question is, are Canadians going to win, or is it going to be just more of the same? And we'll get into it with bureaucracy, suppliers, political connections, all the people that are really close to the money spigot, developers who probably supported him in this campaign. Those are the ones who are going to benefit.
100%.
So let's talk about the core announcement and what's promised. So at that press conference, he was promising 4,000 factory-built homes at a cost of $13 billion. So doing the math, we're talking about $3.25 million per home, at least in the first year. Now, sure, this is ramp up, and of course, there'll be more homes to come. But the immediate payoff seems to be about $3 million per home. And this is before land costs and all the additional costs that will be surrounding this project. So not off to a great start so far, Cor.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify a couple things here because I did a little bit of digging on this. First of all, I believe they are building on government land when they're talking about this specific project. So this does not require land acquisition costs.
However, there's an opportunity cost of what could be done with that land or how much that land could be sold for, let's say, to a developer.
Of course. And then the other point of clarity, because I was like, how is this even possible? Because I've seen this a lot on Twitter and Reddit where people have taken the 4,000 and then divided it into the 13.5 billion to equate to the cost per modular home. And it sounds like now that this is post-press conference, it seems like a portion of that allocation is going towards these 4,000 homes. It's not actually the cost to build each one being specifically, whatever, 3.25 million per home, because that would make zero sense.
Well, what's interesting is Hamilton came out with a commitment and a plan to build modular homes. And I forget the cost, but I think they spent around $150,000 to $200,000 to build these prefab homes. And it turned out that you could buy from the exact same manufacturer in China home for $3,500. So, I think this is the direction that this is heading. And just based on where we're at 6 months in, it seems to be a massive boondoggle in the making. And I couldn't be more concerned as a taxpayer, especially considering what it's been promised to be, which is the be-all and end-all to fixing affordability in Canada. And I just don't see that happening.
The other thing that I think was unclear in the press conference is these are not market homes.
Correct.
These are not for you to purchase. These are for rent, which means who's going to be the landlord? The government. So I felt that was also a misstep in the communication. Because even when I was watching it, I was like, okay, they're trying to do this and always trying to keep an open mind and being somewhat optimistic. And as you dig deeper and go behind the layers, you realize this is rental housing, not market housing.
And we'll talk a little bit more about our concerns about that. And while there is much need for affordable rental housing, it isn't going to solve the affordability crisis for somebody to own a home. And if we're not creating opportunities for people to own homes in Canada, it is a recipe for long-term problems in our society as we're breaking basically one of the greatest promises that a country like Canada or democracy like we have in the United States, where they promise the opportunity for home ownership. And it seems like the government is just wiping its hands from that, even as a potential option right now. And so they're focusing on something much, much different.
100%. And also just a point of clarity on that. So I was like, are they going to be, now that they've started this initiative, are they still moving forward with the insane Housing Accelerator Program that they had started? I believe it was in 2023. And at the investment on this, and I have this in my notes. So this is run by CMHC. And this, I saw Gregor Robinson, who's the housing minister, talking about this. So this program is for market homes so that you can purchase. But now instead of focusing on market homes, they're going to do mixed use homes, meaning there's going to be a mix of rental, affordability, and market homes in that mix in terms of this program. And in Ontario specifically, the federal contribution for this has been $471 million in the hopes of achieving about 61,000 new permanent homes between 2024 and 2026. And guess how many we've built?
How many, Kori?
Just over 22,000. And 2026 is not that far away. So
No.
this program is still moving forward, but we have not really seen the returns on this investment either. So I just want people to be clear about the two programs because I find it a little bit confusing, the fact that there's this new Building Canada Homes, but then the Home Accelerator Program is still moving forward as well.
Which the results thus far have been very underwhelming. Again, a harbinger of things to come with this particular policy or program that the government, or actually ministry that the government is now building out. Other real concerns about this, red flags, are there is no real definition yet of what is affordable, which I find very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Other concerns is now, while very, very noble to have a mandate for Canadian-made materials that are climate friendly, just remember, when you put the word Canadian-made and climate-friendly in the same sentence, that means you are not going to be saving on costs. It is going to be extremely expensive as part of this mandate to build. So it'll be very interesting to watch how all of this comes up. And then, of course, with most government type programs like this, there is no real metric in terms of what is affordable, in terms of how the government will measure progress or how the taxpayer can measure progress along the way. So a lot of red flags about this mandate that is now moving forward. Definitely not off to a very good start. But I think one of the things that we touched upon earlier, Kori, which I totally agree with, is that this is all rental housing. So just remember that. And, there's this old adage, it's often implied with the World Economic Forum, you will own nothing and be happy. It's very concerning when you have an entire portion of the population that's basically locked out from home ownership, specifically the younger generations, who just basically are starting to feel that this is just hopeless and they will never do what every single prior generation in Canada has done, and that is have the option or potentially the opportunity in front of them to actually own a home. And when you take that optionality away from people, and when you take the upward mobility that used to be such an important aspect of living in Canada, it creates a different type of society where people feel that there isn't a chance for upward mobility, where they don't necessarily have a stake in society. And if somebody has the opportunity to buy or to rent, that's one thing. But when somebody doesn't even have that opportunity, you have a lot less investment. And I'm talking about personal investment. You have a lot less skin in the game in society. And it means if you're working in the digital economy or you have some really good skills that would be really, really appreciated elsewhere, it's much more easy to pick up and leave. And it's also much more easy to vote for more governments that just promise more and more because you feel in your situation moving forward is hopeless. And so if we're going to start to make a real shift in our economy and we're going to make a real shift in society, as you can see, there's just so much division out there. Having hope, having the opportunity to actually own something, having younger generations become invested, having skin in the games into our economy and into our culture and into society only makes us stronger. But when we don't have that, it's so much easier for things to be so divisive. And that's why it is such an important issue. And that's why I am so concerned that we're heading completely in the wrong direction with trying to find a solution to not just the housing crisis, but the much bigger problem, which is really our struggling economy.
I
Cora?
could not agree more, and how important it is as a young person to strive for something. And that's not to suggest that your goal should be home ownership. That might not be for you. And I think that's totally cool and awesome. And if your goal is like, you know what, I want to rent and travel, or I want to be able to rent and be a digital nomad and work from wherever I want to in the world, that's amazing too. So perhaps there might be, a new way people live and breathe and function that is just part of a newer generation because affordability is impossible for the younger generation. But at the same point in time, Ralph, I completely agree with you in terms of my own life trajectory, how important the goal of purchasing my first condo actually was for me. It motivated me at work. It motivated me to get a second job. It taught me about the value of money. I had such a sense of pride about it. It was like very empowering thing to do. It gave me confidence. And I remember even a period in my life where all my friends were buying condos and I was just not at a stage in my life where I could do that. And I look around and see everybody else doing so well. It inspired me to push myself more and move myself up the financial ladder because I felt like I was falling behind. And so now, if you're a young person, it's so out of reach and so impossible. It would be very deflating in terms of doing all the right things. You finish with your good grades in high school, you do your undergrad, perhaps you do a master's, you get through all of that. Then you cannot find a job and you probably cannot afford a home unless your parents can help you with a down payment. Is very sad. And I can definitely see that really changing the fabric about basically the psychology of how people are living moving forward. And it's very deflating.
100%. And it's really what the discussion should be about, not how many homes the Canadian government could build to become a landlord. It's how do we actually fix this problem?
Yes.
And when you look at the bigger picture, Canada's GDP per capita has not grown in 10 years. And if you look at where we were 10 years ago, our GDP was basically where Singapore was. Today, we're number 38 in the OECD, tied for Luxembourg, flat. So we've had flat growth, but yet the prices of everything continues to somehow go up. At the same time, our productivity as a country per worker has literally gone straight down. In the words of the Bank of Canada this summer, our productivity is a break glass moment. And the reason why we have such low productivity is we have no business investment. We have no investment into R&D. We have no investment into machineries. And if you look at the chart over the last 10 years, especially the last 5 or 6 years, it's literally going straight down. And then if you look at our standard of living relative to the US over the last same time period, it's collapsing. And so we have a real issue with the opportunity for growth in a very stagnant economy, which has been like this for well over a decade. And now we have this record youth unemployment, which is really causing a lot of pressure on younger generations who are feeling more and more frustrated, which I can completely understand. And it's becoming a real problem. And so we do have opportunities, like we have the third most natural oil or oil reserves in the world. We have tons of resources, but we're not allowed to touch them. So it's a real conundrum that our economy is facing. And I think if we can fix that. And I don't have all the answers, and I don't know anyone who really does, but at least that's where the conversation should be heading. We fix that problem, or we make strides to fix that problem, or we make gains over a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year period. That's where we'll see an end to the housing affordability crisis, in conjunction with better development and in conjunction better development zoning rules and taxes,
Regulations.
this regulations and all that. But really, in my opinion, this is where the problem is. It's the housing crisis, affordability crisis, is just part of a smaller problem, which is the fact that people aren't moving forward in this economy en masse, and they're getting stuck. 15 years ago, we had the strongest middle class in the world, the richest middle class in the world. That's gone. And so those are the issues that we need to fix. And we fix that issue, or we make strides in fixing that issue, and everything else, all of the systemic problems as a result, will start to slowly fix themselves.
Yeah, I think
Cora?
I think people just need to understand that the less GDP we have per capita, the less income growth we have. The
We're
more
getting poorer.
GDP per capita, the more income growth we have. And so they're directly tied. And if we have those things together, then affordability becomes less of an issue. And because we have less supply on top of that, and then we have so much immigration on top of that, it's just making affordability more and more and more out of reach. And I know people so badly want to see this like massive correction in the market, and we've certainly seen a correction, but that doesn't all of a sudden make the price points palatable for young people to buy homes or enter the market for the first time based on income.
And there are solutions out there. Like, I read an interview with Andrew Joyner from Tricon, who's a large purpose-built developer. And he was talking about, and I read this report as well from the CMHC, where in order to build enough housing, now this is according to the CMHC, the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, which is a government body. Thank you, Kori. I'm really lacking my words today. They forecast that we need $1 trillion investment into the housing market by 2030. Not 13 billion or 50 billion, but $1 trillion to build as much as 3.5 million new homes. And what he talks about is Canadian REITs and pensions are some of the most sophisticated REITs and pensions in the world. And a lot of our real estate REITs are actually investing in housing, but outside of Canada. And so when you're looking at, 30% of taxes built into the cost of anything new that's built, upwards of $100,000 in many instances, it just doesn't make sense. And he points to what happened in Manhattan after 9/11 in Lower Manhattan, where Bloomberg, for a short period of time in a specific area, just removed all government development charges. And we know what happened as a result of that type of stimulus. And so there are ways, and maybe an example is for a 2-year period in a specific area in Toronto, we just remove all taxes and levies. And maybe the federal government backstops the city, and maybe the developers are told that this would only be applicable if they pass those savings over to buyers, and then there were further incentive plans. We need to find a way for government to get out of the way and help incentivize buyers and developers so that they can bring inexpensive product to market. And that just hasn't happened. And I'm not even saying that that is the bullet solution, but there are other ways other than just trying to build mass affordable rental housing than what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, nobody wants to live in a dog crate modular house. I'm sorry, rental or owned. And then the other point, and Ralph, I really like your suggestion. It would just be my additional comment to that would be that building quality properties that actually function and make sense. I don't think anyone wants to live, with their partner in 350 square feet with 8-foot ceilings looking into a brick wall at the same point in time. So let's bring back some quality construction.
Exactly. And that's an interesting point when you said that. You reminded me of is somebody who toured some affordable housing at Bloor and Bathurst, which is just down from our offices at the Merva site. And how did they talk about their experience walking
it's
through?
Really interesting. So she was in a fitness class with me, and she's an architect. and we were just chatting about the area, and we were talking about Mirvish Village, and which is purpose-built rental. And she happens to be very tall and an architect, so a good person to communicate with about this. And she said she toured that building as a potential place to live. And she said that she and her partner could barely stand up on the lower floors because the ceiling heights were so low. So the sales rep was like, oh, you'd have to live on a higher floor because they're so tall, which just sounds insane within itself. And if you live on a higher floor, you have to pay more. So she's like penalized for being a tall person touring.
That's not very inclusive, Kori.
Not inclusive at all. Being penalized, she'd have to spend more to live on a higher floor to adapt for her height, which wasn't like she was like basketball player height. She just happened to be tall. And same with her partner. And she's like, we could barely stand up. I don't even know how that gets passed. It's just devastating. That place is going to be like ghettoized soon at this point.
I know.
But that was in another podcast. Let's not go down that path.
Exactly. Let's keep this moving forward. And let's look at some examples of past government track records. Let's start with the federal government. And little people really know or think about this, but they are a massive commercial landlord in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2017, the government admitted half of its 6 million square meter office space was completely underutilized. Now, this was before COVID. In 2019, they announced this big plan to downsize and sell off all these surplus properties. Nothing happened. In 2023, it actually moved from 6 million square meters of office space, despite this initiative, to 5.9 million square meters. And then in 2024, the government allocated $1.1 billion of taxpayers' money to accelerate, yes, the sales process, saying that this is going to save $3 billion or $3.5 billion over a decade. I wouldn't be holding my breath. And so this is how the federal government today, as a very large commercial landlord, is handling their properties completely inefficiently.
And I was reading in preparation for our podcast today, the private sector has actually reduced their office space downtown post-COVID by 20 to 30% within 3 years. And the government is hardly made a dent.
And do you think a private company could afford to have 50% of its office space just sitting for 5, 6, 7 years?
Yeah, collect some dust.
Paying for all this?
Yeah, like that would just never make the P&L sheet.
No, or the company would be bankrupt and that would be it.
Or the CEO would be fired.
Another favorite topic, let's talk about the city of Toronto's track record as a residential landlord. Now, not many people know this. What's that?
I said, we kill it.
Oh, yeah. So Toronto is Canada's largest landlord. Lots of people don't actually think about this, but they manage 60,000 units. And so if you look at the history or track record, we have billions in repair backlogs here in Toronto. Many, 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 many complaints of unsafe and unhealthy living conditions.
Like disgusting.
And a ton of vacancy mismanagement. And I think it was like around 2013, 14, they had a whole bunch of houses that they had to sell off. And I remember walking through them, and they basically were like all boarded up. They were rat infested. Usually the instructions were bring a flashlight. They just couldn't even take care somehow of these houses in great neighborhoods and like Riverdale and Roncesvalles, just sitting completely vacant in very, very disastrous conditions. I think they sold off about 150 houses. In 2012, the repair backlog was $750 million for the Toronto Community Housing, the TCHC. Today, that has mushroomed up to $2.6 billion in repair backlogs. And
I think it's $4 billion, Ralph.
It's $4 billion.
Okay. $4 billion as of 2024.
There you go. And I have a comment here from the Auditor General who highlights the TCHC as being poor governance, waste, and systemic neglect. So that's how Toronto's performed thus far as a landlord, Kori. Does that surprise you, especially in conjunction with the federal government's track record as a commercial landlord?
It doesn't surprise me at all. And I too have toured some of those houses and I will never go back to them again. And there's just no way I'm going to let a rat run up my leg. There's just no way. I don't care what the what the property is. And I was also reading that the Auditor General's report in 2022 from Ottawa said that Ottawa has spent $4.5 billion on these housing affordability programs since 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And what measurable outcomes do we have for that? None.
So what about the government's track record of other programs? Have they had any massive failures, Cora?
Can't really think of any. No, I can. Let's talk about them because we always like to complain about this. We talk about where our tax dollars go. It's crazy. Think of how much money we spend, people, on our taxes. It's crazy. And then you have to I think it's really important, actually, now that we talk about this, is that I really wish our audience, and I know that our audience probably does already because that's why they're listening to this right now, is we need to be paying attention to this. We need to get involved. We need to become super informed. And just reading the headlines is not enough. Canada, I can't even believe this is coming out of my own mouth as somebody who was like, ow, so naive to all of this, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But since COVID, I've become much more invested in this. And I'm telling you, it's your responsibility to really dig deep and just understand this infrastructure and everything that's happening behind the scenes. So ArriveCan, as an example, was supposed to be $80,000, turned into a $54 million project with just so much insane corruption behind the scenes. We don't even want to talk about that today.
I think there was a couple kids working in a cottage or something.
Yeah, it's just the most insane thing. That's a really good example. We've done an entire podcast about this, but everyone's favorite Toronto project for sure, it's just everyone's favorite, is the Eglinton Crosstown LRT, budgeted for $5.5 billion. It's now over $12 billion and counting, my friends. And guess what? It's over a decade late and it's still not operating.
With no date or budget anymore.
No. We do have a new CEO, which we talked about. So, hey.
We did.
There we go.
Good luck to him.
With a major, major salary. We've got, my favorite is the Green Slush Fund, also known as the Sustainable Technology Development Canada. That's over $400 million with absolutely zero accountability about where those funds have gone. I don't understand how that's even possible.
Someone's gotten rich.
Oh, somebody has. A couple people probably
Some people.
have.
Yes.
And then we've got our favorite WE charity that's administered over about $900 million in Canada Student Service Grant programs. No formal procurement process. A lot of questions about favoritism on this one, and a ton, not shocking, conflicts of interest. So those are some of my highlights. And I know you have some to add to the list.
Cora, I think you did a really good job, but I'll just throw in there the Phoenix Pay system, already at $2.4 billion cost to Canadians. There's we actually tried to build or expand a pipeline in BC. It was expressed cost to be about $4.5 billion. It's over $34 billion in costs. So this is just an example, and we could go on and on and on and on of government mismanaged with these type of mega projects and sometimes small projects that just become massive in scale, especially when there is no need for any type of accountability. And as we have this conversation, at least I'll speak for myself, this isn't about liberal, this isn't about conservative. I think, if I were to characterize myself, I'm probably a libertarian, where I just believe less government is better, especially in Canada, where we've just gotten so bloated. And that's really, if this is a bit of a rant, I think where this is coming from, at least on my end. But this is a complete disaster in the making. And yes, some units may get built, but is this going to do what it's claiming it's going to do, which is going to bring affordability or solve the housing crisis? I think it's going to put Canada in a deeper hole. And I don't think it's going to put any dent on making it more accessible, housing more accessible for the average Canadian.
And I think the thing that I found really interesting about this press conference last week is I was reading a lot of the comments on Reddit and YouTube and on Twitter or X. And I don't really feel like the wool's been pulled over many people's eyes. People were blasting it. It wasn't like people oh, yay, rental modular housing. I'm so happy. Like people were like, what the F? No, I didn't see like one positive supportive comment. And I was looking at different social media feeds, both on the right and left, just to see if I could get a different perspective, which I'm always trying to do. Like, is it just me or like, does everyone else feel this way? And the comments were just negative everywhere I looked. Like, I just don't think anyone's buying this. A lot of people aren't paying attention for sure, but anyone paying attention, I do not think is buying into this at all.
And there you have it. So we'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments section. It's very interesting times, as always, in the Toronto real estate market, in Canada. Lots happening all the time. So we'd absolutely love to hear your comments on what you guys are seeing and how you're feeling about this program. And maybe if there are some pros to it that we didn't talk about, we'd absolutely love to hear your thoughts. Kori, is there anything you'd like to end off with?
I just want to add one thing is that they're partnering with, I forget the name of it. I want to say secular, but I'm not sure if that's the right word. But it's actually Mattamy Homes. No, it's not modular.
Oh, okay.
For the Nepean project. I don't believe it is. I think it's called like secular. And I think. So please comment below about that. But that's a division or subsidiary of Mattamy Homes, which is a big residential developer. And so I think that's interesting within itself. And what is the connection and why is that particular developer, putting quotes around that, being given this project? And will they be given more projects? Because I think they're rolling this out in 6 different cities. So some clarity around that would be interesting as well.
What is interesting is Mattamy Homes tried to do modular housing and they failed a number of years ago because they couldn't financially figure it out. And they had to shut the whole thing down.
They're back.
So, I mean, listen, who wouldn't want a client like the government where there's no real accountability, there's no cost savings, there's no anything. So I think Mattamy Homes is positioned to do extremely well with having the government as a partner in this.
Yes.
And they definitely stand to benefit. But taxpayers, I just don't see it. And if I'm wrong or somebody has an opinion, I'd absolutely love to hear from it down below.
And it's called Stemular, not secular. But I tried.
You did. You did your best. That's all we can ask.
I know. Well, I'm looking forward to follow up on this conversation. Maybe we'll do another one about this by the end of the year. But I really appreciate the discussion. I'm looking forward to the comments. Well, I'm looking forward to most of the comments. And thank you for spending some time with me this afternoon, Ralph.
Thank you, Kori, and thank you to our watchers, whatever time it is you happen to be watching this conversation. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.